Yeah, love the Zoom morning. Yeah,
Yes.
so hi, I'm Lindsay. I am currently the global product lead of Mariana Tech, where I was the first UX researcher. And as Oren mentioned, I was then the global head of product research and operations at Xplor. So now excited to be leading the whole product function, but obviously with a big focus in research. So just a little bit about my path here. So I went to school for industrial engineering, but then we'll call it a pivot. You can call it a freak out, however you want to phrase it. Became a full stack .NET developer for the first little bit out of college. But throughout my time as a developer, I was always a lot more interested in the front end and UX rather than the back end. So when I learned about UX as a whole career, I was lucky enough to take a general assembly course, and I loved how it felt, like a more modern approach to what I had learned in school. And I quickly learned that while I was less great at the visual stuff, I was really interested and pretty good, I'd like to say, at learning about the why behind how people use our software. So I started looking for roles that kind of blended that design and engineering background, and took a role as a UX engineer at Mariana Tech. But throughout my interviews, made sure to kind of gauge that there was a healthy desire for research as a practice within the org. I knew that, in joining a small company, I'd be able to have impact definitely in my engineering role, but also be able to kind of introduce research at a really early stage. I wanted to work somewhere where I could have immense impact, both on the product and our users, and having, research be such an early position. There, I was employee 15 at Mariana Tech, helped us, remain really user focused throughout our growth. So for the first 6 or so months, I'd say I was kind of splitting time, doing research, doing development, but was able to talk to our director of engineering and be like, listen, I can continue doing both. One's going to suffer. I really think the impact that I can have on our business would be way more if I jumped into research full time. And he agreed. So off I went. I think the insights that I had been gathering and delivering to the team, had long been more useful than the code that I was writing. Not that I wasn't writing good code, but that, at the time of our company, we really needed those insights and that research to kind of guide some of that direction. So I started off just supporting our, main admin platform. Mariana Tech makes business management software for boutique fitness studios. And then, focused on any existing roadmap work, and then got to support all of our products, both end consumer and staff facing, as I got more comfortable with balancing projects. Yeah, we've been acquired by Xplor Technologies, which is where that kind of back and forth comes from. But the Mariana Tech brand is still thriving. So that's where I'm at today.
Very cool. Very cool. I think your background is incredibly unique. You might be one of the only people that has hit almost all of the different roles in a product org, starting as an engineer and into UX engineering, and then into research, and now into product. So maybe it would be helpful for the audience to just hear a bit more about some of those moves, and how maybe having experience as an engineer has helped you in your research role, and how now your experience as a researcher and an engineer is helping you in your new product role, and kind of how you view maybe the interconnection between these different pieces. I think that would be super cool to hear.
Yeah, definitely. I like to say that I worked my way from the back all the way up and out. So how has it helped? So I think it, the gist of it is that it gives context to all of my decisions. So I obviously want to be an advocate for our users first and foremost all the time, but I think we all know they ask for some pretty crazy things sometimes. And, obviously we're not delivering exactly what they ask, but even the things that we think might suit them best are just, technically really challenging or totally infeasible. And so I think having that context and helping deliver my insights when I was a researcher, with the context of, I know the code base, I know how, the different parts that it impacts. I think working in a small startup and speaking directly to the dev team, it helps kind of level set of like, I'm not just gonna, feed you all these hopes and dreams and things that, I wish that we could do. I'll ground it a little bit more in reality, and kind of be able to speak to it at their level. Not to say that, you can't be collaborative and deliver insights without that. I think it just, in a fast-paced, ever-changing environment, it helped kind of cut out that back and forth when time was of the essence.
Yeah, awesome. So I think the other thing that's great about your background that I'd love to tap into as well is you obviously joined as employee 15 at Mariana Tech, and made your way into the first research role, but then obviously you've expanded the research team and grown to an awesome whole team. So what was that journey like? How did you make the case to build the team? What was that journey like?
Oh, it was a journey. Joining a high growth startup is exciting and stressful and awesome all at the same time. It's definitely an all hands on deck all the time situation, which made it both really critical, but also, I want to say fairly easy, but just a lot more access to learning a ton about the business, the product, the users. And so diving fully into that, and just kind of soaking in everything, definitely helped me a lot. Some days it felt really overwhelming, like there were far too many problems to solve and understand and just not enough of me. But being so close to the problems and the solutions, it makes you better at your job. It feels deeply personal. I think I've talked to a lot of people that are on this call, and the Rally team about, how close I feel to a lot of our clients, and how that helped both further my own empathy and, how I was able to distill that to the rest of the team. And it just ultimately, made me a better researcher, connecting with those business owners, hearing their stories and experiences. As we started to grow, but the whole time that we were at, or we were just Mariana, it was just me. I think it became pretty clear that, being stretched across all of our teams and all of our products, I couldn't get to it all. But knowing that I couldn't get to it all and making the case for someone else should be getting to it are kind of two different things. So how do you make the case that it's worth, continuing to hire additional people? So I break down, all the proposed research projects that a team would have over the next, quarter, 6 months, year, and be able to show, I can do this, this, and this, but these are the things that would either need to be picked up by someone else or not done at all. When talking to executives, I like to position research as risk mitigation. And so, hiring for a position that increases the chances that we'll build the right thing the first time, or if not the first time, shortly thereafter, and certainly learn from it, is a good way to kind of connect on that. Okay, we know we need more research, but does it, financially make sense for the business at this stage? So I found that kind of connection and using that as like the risk mitigation has been a really helpful communication tactic when you're kind of trying to manage up and talk to that need.
Yeah, I love that. Just to maybe put you on the spot, do you have any examples of how you were able to show that research has led to risk mitigation within certain decisions that your company's made in the past? I think people are always hungry for examples as well.
Oh yeah. I actually, and if Michelle's on the call, she's gonna die. He's airing our dirty laundry here. I am big on learning from failure. So I'll share an example of where the research said one way and we ended up going the other, and it hurt the business. It wasn't an ideal outcome. So we released like a kiosk app, and we researched it for a while. We had a lot of good competitive research, and also did some on-site testing as well. And the insights and the consensus were clear that we should go in one direction. the exec team wanted to prioritize security over what we wanted to prioritize, which is totally fair. And so we kind of doubled down in that direction. It is not an adopted product of Mariana Tech to this day. It is not a success story. And so, but it's something that we can learn from, and it's something that we can say, you know, this was a big need that we had for our customers. And we had the resources and the research to do it. And we, you know, delivered that, and we didn't do it. And, you know, we've probably lost some money from it. And so, you know, being kind of brutally honest and sharing those examples back up with executives, I found has been really helpful. We don't always want to look, you know, at our failures on a day-to-day basis, but I think we can learn from them.
Yeah, I think it's a really important practice, definitely, to take a look at those failures.
It's not fun.
Yeah, agreed. It's okay to fail. Well, thank you for that example. Another one of the topics we spoke a little bit about as we were preparing for this was around some of the challenges and lessons that you've learned throughout the you know, democratization process of research as well. You know, you're very into building a user-centric research practice, and that includes, you know, equipping other folks in the business to do their own research. So we'd love to just hear some of those lessons, some of those challenges, your take on the pros and cons of democratization, without making it maybe a 14-hour debate, because I know we could get into that.
It could be. Yeah, I mean, team of one, it's, you know, it's critical to make research a team sport. It helps, you know, further both the amount of research being done, but also obviously the empathy in the team. I think we all know that seeing and hearing of, you know, struggles or wins from the user firsthand is just a lot more impactful than reading it or even watching a recording. And so every single person in our org either needs to perform it or consume it. It's not the case on every single person now that we are a much bigger company, but it's still the expectation in the product team that they're, you know, super involved, whether you're a product manager or a designer, and obviously a researcher, you're super involved in the research and understand the process from start to finish. And so, you know, lots of great benefits there. I think we could talk for days about why involving non-researchers in research is so great. But, you know, it obviously leads to things like not so great research being done if the researcher isn't the one doing it, and certainly some tricky logistics of, you know, scheduling and things like that. And so as far as the, you know, quote unquote great research goes, I'm much more in the camp of, you know, I'd rather the team do the research, gain that experience, gain that learning, even if we have to, you know, throw out the results. You know, the amount of both experience and like learning that, you know, that PM or that designer has gained in that experience far outweighs, you know, maybe a researcher needing to, you know, redo a moderated study, for example. And so that risk is worth it to me. And I think it could be a pro or a con, depending on how you look at it. The other thing is logistics. I've gone through, I'm a very organized person, and you know, when it was just me, it was easy to kind of keep everything in my brain or in spreadsheets that made sense to me. But as we started to expand research to other people who maybe didn't build the system, you know, the systems that I had in place, it was tough. You know, how do I reach out to this person? What do I say? I'm afraid to email them. What are some templates that I can follow up on? Talking to people you don't know can be scary. You're afraid to say the wrong thing. You're afraid to get asked questions where you don't know the answer. And obviously, as researchers, we have a lot of experience in that. We're super trained on it. But as a non-researcher, I recognize that can be a little scary. And so putting, you know, systems in place from a research operations perspective to mitigate that and limit that fear as much as possible, whether that be, and we've gone through every tool possible in terms of spreadsheets and Airtables and, you know, a bunch of SaaS companies, and obviously landed on Rally as our CRM, which has helped a ton. And it's made, you know, it really digestible and easy for the team to, say, okay, I have this group of people that I need to find them now. I need to email them. We've set up a bunch of templates that make it really easy. But even, we have a big SharePoint site of, okay, this is a script for a consumer. This is a script for a staff member, just making it kind of as easy as possible to plug and play and make the logistics around getting in front of a user not be the blocker and not be the fear. And I never want, the team to say, oh, well, I didn't know what to say or how to schedule, et cetera, so I just didn't talk to anyone. I never want that to feel like the blocker. And so even if that means that, I'm sending your Calendly link to people, I'm fine to do that. But we've certainly found tools that make it a little bit easier.
Awesome. Yeah, appreciate that overview. I'm glad to hear, logistics are no longer the blocker there, because they're the least fun part.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Well, yeah, on that point, I guess research ops, you pointed to, obviously research ops becoming more important as you started scaling, of course, because when you're a team of one, maybe you can have a bit of a tighter hold on things, but as you start to scale, ops need to be scaled as well. So I'm curious, how does research ops fit into your scope? How has it evolved? And have you considered hiring a research ops dedicated role? Where does that fit into your worldview?
Yeah. So as I was starting the practice, I was really lucky to get involved in a bunch of different communities, specifically the research ops one, and learned really early on that research ops is critical to the success of any research practice. And so like I mentioned, I spun up a lot of things from scratch, got a lot of templates from other people, and kind of handled that on my own at first. And it's gone through a lot of different iterations. And we've switched research repositories, we've switched research panels, we've switched a lot of things. I think the key is that as we've grown and as the scope has expanded, what works for me won't work for everyone else. And kind of just being honest about that, of like, the thing you built isn't as digestible to product managers as it is to you, and it's not as accessible. And so, making sure that we're not just setting our research ops strategy and letting it sit and forget about it, and knowing that it is an evolving practice. It is not something that you can like hire a consultant in, have it fit, and then kind of move on and just like, let it go. And so given that, it's an ongoing priority. It weighs as much as, actually completing the research. And so in terms of, prioritizing that against actual research to be done when there's so much to do, I've made it clear, up and down and across that, if the process around the research is chaotic, then the research will be chaotic. We all get our best work done when the ops are, a little bit more buttoned up. And so, spending the time and dedicating the time to do that, just pays off endlessly. In terms of hiring a research ops person, the size that we're at right now, I feel like as a team, we're managing it well. We were lucky to be able to hire a product operations manager, which I recognize is different, but obviously in that same ops realm, and she actually comes from a research background. And so it's awesome to have someone kind of sitting in the middle as that partner to help with a lot of those processes. We prioritize the work of, okay, there's not as much product ops, maybe there's some research ops stuff that we can help with. She's super involved in kind of all facets of the process, and it's kind of filling that gap for now, but we're definitely gonna need to be pushing on a full research ops hire, I'm sure, in the future.
Yeah, awesome. Well, it looks like we have a few quick questions in the chat. One of them on Rally specific, which we can definitely get to, but I think also this other one on research ops having many pillars. Where do you start? How would you do it differently if you were to start from a team of one again?
Yeah. Sorry, let me close the chat. I started with a research repository. I think one of my biggest things of growing a team and growing a product is that I'm looking out for future me, and future me might not be me. And it can't all be in my head. And I don't do my best work when it's all in my head. And so getting a repo set up off the bat was key. We had and connecting it to all of our different systems, we had so much feedback coming in from all different places. And so having that central place where we could look at, research sessions and customer support requests and, all of the above. I know there's a lot of great tools out there that, work great depending on what your use case is. We've gone through a few of them now. I built the first one in Airtable. We quickly outgrew that, but that's just because, we have a lot of very vocal clients who love to submit a lot of ideas. The second thing I did was spinning up a dedicated research panel. I think recruitment is always a challenge. There are tools to make it easier. There are processes to make it easier. There are people to make it easier. It's always tough. You're working with humans, you're trying to get their time, even if you're paying them, you're asking a big favor constantly. And so having a group of people that we could, trust and reach out to, we knew how to segment between them was really critical. It was important to me to keep growing it and not just have it be kind of a one and done recruitment, because we don't want to be hitting the same people over and over again. And so that was really key. And, not having access be a blocker. We always could pull a list of people, even if it was like 3 people. It's better than, spending a couple days needing to go do that external recruitment. We always had that to fall back on. After that was templates. I was able to, spin them up from my brain for a long time. But as soon as, we started to pull in PMs, pull in designers, and eventually hire more researchers, templates of like, okay, here's the spiel you give in the beginning. Here are the points you need to hit. Here is like typically how it's formatted, was really helpful. I think those are like the top 3 things that I started with.
Beautiful. And would you do it differently if you were to start from a team of 1 again, or would you do the same kind of approach of repo panels and templates?
Would I do it differently? I would make sure that they were all a little bit more connected. Those 3 things lived entirely separately from each other for a very long time, which was fine at the time. But, as you democratize and you're bringing other people in, where do I find this? Where do I find this? Just starts to get really challenging. And also from a research repo perspective, I took the like fire hose approach of just like, I want all of the info, which is great, but you have to dedicate some time to go through all of that feedback. And we just didn't have the team to support that. So maybe it would have been a little bit more critical of what makes it in.
Awesome. Cool. We have a few follow-up questions here. One of them is relevant to what you were just talking about, so we'll jump there first. From Matthias, if you can tell us a bit more about how you set up your user panel and how you keep them engaged.
Yeah. So as a researcher, I did a ton of research before I started the panel. So I took a lot of inspiration from how Atlassian does it. I love that they have branded their panel to feel really special. And there's a lot of touch points. Like when you sign up, it feels, like that specific experience. It feels a little bit like Atlassian, but not, it feels like its own brand. And you get a follow-up email that says, here's what you can expect. I think the expectation part is key. We have a landing page on Mariana Tech. You can go to it. It's marianatech.com/research-program that says, here are what all these different sessions are. Here's what you're signing up for. Here's when you can expect to hear from us. And so it's setting that expectation that we might not reach out to you right away. We want to reach out to you for something that is, relevant to who you are. And our panel isn't so big that there's like corners of it that go cold. So we are trying to make sure that, we're getting to some of those people that haven't been reached out to. And yeah, every year at Christmas, I send a thank you to every single person who has participated in a study, a survey, like literally just interacted with the research team at all. I don't know. And it comes from me. I think it's kind of heartfelt. I share kind of, it's not like 2 years ago, 1 year ago, I don't even know. I was like, we grew, it's not just me anymore. We have Kendall now. And like, so, it's nice to be able to tell that story, thank them for their time. Again, we're in the business of favors. Even if we're paying them, we're asking them for their time and their thoughts. And so showing them that you appreciate that, I think is a big part of keeping that panel. But also just the documentation of it all and making sure that they have some place to go to and point to know what they can expect. And so we have, different collateral for account managers or sales that they can pass out that kind of speaks to that specific audience when we're trying to recruit people for the panel.
Wonderful. Super tactical feedback. And yeah, I love the idea of giving people a thank you gift at the end of the year. Helps them feel more connected to the whole process. It's awesome. Cool. A couple more follow-up questions. We won't be able to get to all of them quite yet, but another one I think is interesting is bringing together qualitative research with the data science and analytics pieces, and especially now moving into your product role. I'm sure there's going to be even more on the analytics side that you're thinking about. So curious to hear how you've done that, what tools have supported that work.
Yeah. Caitlin's on the call, she'll laugh because we're currently in our mixed panel implementation process.
Yeah.
So I try to have research drive, what behavior are we trying to change or drive? And then think about and connect with the PMs of, okay, how would this show up in the numbers? It might not. It might need to be something, that we just need to track qualitatively after the fact. But I want us to all be aligned at the beginning of, this is what we're trying to accomplish. Here's the ways that we're going to collect it. And always connecting those features that we've researched up to our core business metrics. So did this impact the monthly revenue that a client was able to make? And even if we can speak to that anecdotally of like, okay, we researched this, we released it, and then, our brand made X amount more per month. We can time box that and say, we expect this to have impact in this amount of time. Did it shorten the time to complete a sale for the front desk? I want us to all be, on the same page about what we think we're going to drive, both quantitatively and qualitatively, and pointing back to that. You always want to be able to, show the impact of research, in a way that the business understands. It helps make that case for another researcher. It helps, track that impact over time, and just, helps continue that investment when you can connect it and really show that, return on investment in the researcher. We're getting more into the metrics land. So I'll have more to share on that in the new year.
Yeah, no, that's really exciting. And it sounds like it's critical for being able to show impact of research and make the case internally. So I guess just to go a little bit deeper on that, it'd be good to hear if you've put together any like systems or processes in place to keep track of impact on an ongoing basis. I know different companies have different ways of thinking about it, but curious how you've measured and tracked impact over time.
Yeah, so in the early days, the feedback loops, very short, very immediate. Working directly with the Scrum team, when your ideas are implemented and if they worked or not. Sometimes you wish you didn't know. As we got bigger, are you getting that engagement from senior leadership? Are they looking to you for guidance? Are they coming to you with more generative questions, or are we always just leaning on the evaluative stuff? And just overall engagement from the team from a qualitative perspective. Do you have research embedded on a Scrum team? Do developers, ask research questions, things like that? We're actually Wes is working on a system right now to track, by project, what's the impact that we have? Was it shared in a workplace post? Was there a marketing post about it? Was there a business metric that we're driving? And trying to marry those qualitative and quantitative. I am a big year-end reflection person of looking at everything I've done this year, and understanding, what I'd double down on or what I wouldn't do if I had to do it again next year. And so getting a, snapshot of that, I think will be really helpful. We're kind of at the size right now where we went from 1 to 5 really quickly. And so keeping it in a central place, I think it's going to be key to understand how, not just how am I driving impact, but how is my, peer researcher driving impact as well. So we'll share a template because I'm really excited about that work. I think impact and return on investment, et cetera, is really hard in the UX world and really, really hard in research. So, if we strike gold, we will share it from the mountaintops.
I love it. Yeah, no, it's really difficult, but obviously so important because that's how business works. We need to be able to to track those things. So thanks for sharing those tactical tips. Awesome. So yeah, obviously you've seen some awesome growth there, moving from 1 to 5 researchers. Curious to hear a bit more about your vision for how research, maybe not just as a role, but as an activity and function, is going to be evolving at Xplor in the next few years. Especially as we move more into product leadership side of things.
Yeah. So obviously having me move from head of research to head of product, research has always been really at the core of how we work. I think we've been really lucky to have partners kind of in every part of the business that really value the work that the research team does, but I'm excited to have it, myself lead it from a product perspective and, have the opportunity and the position to lead that at a senior leadership level. So over the next year, we're shifting a little bit. So we've worked in more of a centralized consulting style structure for a while. As you grow, or I guess just in general, there's a couple different models that you can work with, whether you're embedded or you have, that centralized team, or whether you work on that consulting capacity. And so we were working in a centralized model where kind of just the most important project is what we took on. And so it helped get the work done, but I don't think it allowed our researchers to go super deep in their areas. So we are moving to a more segment or brand specific approach. So each researcher will be focused in their specific segment, and being able to, support the product roadmap there. So I'm excited to see, the generative work that comes out of that, and see how research can really drive the roadmap in a way that we might have not been able to do as well before. So excited to see where that goes. And then the other part is working with the design team to understand where they fit into the research picture. We advocate that designers should be able to own the evaluative part of their work, of the project they're working on. But obviously our researchers are always available to support them as experts. We don't want them to feel like, crap, I need to be the one to run this study, but I don't know how. We will hold your hand, we will be there, but we want to empower you, to see your work go from nothing to, a fully tested prototype that you can deliver with confidence. So our ideal split, and I say ideal and, nothing is ever ideal, is more researchers spending their time in 30% foundational research. So that generative, learning, where we should go next, what's changing about our users, et cetera. 50% in that discovery. So should we build this? Are we building the right thing? Are we going in the right direction? And then 20% in the evaluative, mostly in that support capacity of, okay, we built it. Did we build it right? So yeah, that's where I see us going over the next year. And I guess the thing I left out, because it's in flight right now, is being way more product analytics focused and way more metric focused, and kind of understanding at every level how that drives up. So I think of it as a tree of, from the top business metric, we want to grow Mariana Tech this much this year. And so at my, day-to-day, this little feature that I'm building, do I see that, ladder all the way up? What are the touch points and what are the different metrics that, this is fueling this, which fuels this? And I can see that. I think, lots of benefits there, but it helps us just stay, grounded in the impact that we're trying to do and have on our business, especially these small business owners. And just helps it feel, a little bit more meaningful. So I'm excited about the next year.
Yeah, sounds like a lot of great thought and thoughtfulness have gone into planning for it, and I think we're seeing maybe another AMA December 15th on 2023. If everyone wants to mark their calendars to.
How'd it go? Did Lindsay fulfill her promise?
Yeah, how'd it go? How ideal? Yeah, did you end up at the ideal state? That's great. Cool. Well, that's super helpful context. And now, this is a question that has come up a couple times, both in the chat, but also beforehand. I know we've got a lot of folks here who are, research teams of one, or people that, have been in, you've been in their position in the past, and of course, they've got a lot on their plate. They are expected to do the research, evangelize the findings, consult with non-researchers, manage the ops, vendors, legal, etc. What's one piece of advice you can give to folks who are in this position?
Yeah, I think it's the one thing I wish I had done when I jumped into research. I think, lots of moving pieces, all hands on deck, maybe didn't have the time, or this potentially didn't seem valuable at the time. But research your team. What's their biggest problem? What does it feel like the biggest problem is to them? You might think that, it's this one thing, it's the legal about it, it's because we don't have an NDA and you've been spending all your time, into that process, but it's actually this other super quick fix that makes a huge impact and makes their day-to-day, a lot better. And so prioritize your research ops work amongst your research work, based on those conversations, the same way that you do with any backlog. So what's the priority? How much of your time will this take? Can you delegate it to another team? We can talk about what the ideal is, what my experience is, all day. But every team is different. And I think you can take a lot of this, as inspiration, but, I've read a ton of books about research. I've, a ton of podcasts. I've done all the research on research, but how it applies to your specific team is always going to be unique. And so make sure you're understanding at every level, what does research look like to your exec team? Do they not understand it at all? How can you help provide that context? Are your developers, does the research by the time it gets to them feel watered down? Is there any way that you can help provide that impact a little bit more? So I think asking those questions, of your own team can help a lot. And obviously, you're a research ops person or a product ops person, make your life easier.
Yes.
Not as easy
I think
of a word of advice.
Yeah. No, it's great. I mean, employ your best skill as a researcher. Research. Very cool. Another area that people submitted some questions about, which is always a topic within research teams, is on budget and convincing higher management to support a growing research team by investing in new tools and platforms, compared to being forced to make do with the software the company has already invested in. So as someone who has gone through this process, if you don't mind shedding some light on that.
Yeah, we just did this with you guys.
Yes.
So I think also, if you guys can hear my dog snoring, I'm so sorry. That's the best right now. So I think communicating the inefficiencies that you're experiencing, and how it impacts, the way that you're able to deliver. Higher management just wants to see that return on investment. So what we've talked about with, okay, I can do this, this, and this, but without this tooling, I can only go so far. I can't deliver excellent research. I can just do good research, for example. But also, to devil's advocate on that for a little bit, be critical with yourself on which tools that you're exploring and you're separating from the rest of the business. I think a CRM is a really interesting one in that, and one that, the questions that we answered and we struggled with before opting to go with Rally, because we were in our, the CRM that like the rest of the org used, and there's immense benefits in that, right? Like being able to see that an account manager recently reached out to this person and they weren't happy. So maybe don't ask them if they want to test your prototype. And so being able to weigh those pros and cons for us, the pros of separating it out and being able to track sessions and being able, to have that panel and incentivize all in one place, was extremely worth it. We were spending so much time with so many spreadsheets in between. And so just telling that story of, we have this less ideal CRM that like kind of works for the rest of business. It doesn't really work for us. We're making it work, but like the amount of time that we're spending making it work, we could just be doing the research. And I bet it costs less money to have that system than it does for the hourly rate that your, UX researcher or designer or PM costs. So just breaking that down, they always just want to know that, and it doesn't have to be super hard, fast numbers, just, make the case, speak to it as much as you can. If they push back, dig a little deeper, but even just, coming to the table with, hey, we're spending this amount of time. We think that we could get back that time to do this work if we spent a little bit in tooling.
Yeah, I love it. You've already hired these researchers by making them spend their time navigating spreadsheets. Yeah.
The CSVs that I have on my desktop and like the number of hours I've spent manipulating those CSVs, could have been doing a lot more impactful stuff.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, glad you were able to find a good solution then.
Yes.
Cool. Another question, we're moving kind of back to the research team of one area that was submitted beforehand, was as a research team of one with lots of requests on a fast moving product, how do you develop the right research cadence such that you have enough time to complete a research project and have a second to reflect and organize while still being impactful?
Oof, the hardest part. No one ever thinks this is going to take any time whatsoever. My rule of thumb is that for as much time as the research takes to complete, that's how much time I need to synthesize. And so if I'm spending a week, and like that's shooting big, you're never going to get that time. But if I'm spending a week, testing, I need a week to go through that. I have to listen to my own voice. You're welcome. You don't have to listen to recordings of your own voice, over and over again to get those insights. And I need some time to do that to deliver the quality that, we're looking for. So when you're going in with this shared understanding, you're able to work with the team to prioritize. And maybe the scope that they initially gave you is huge and they don't actually need that big of a project. And so what are the critical research questions that they actually need to, start going forward? Can you answer some of those first? Can you break this up into smaller projects? And if you're able to ground the study in that, then you can check in through those questions throughout the project. And just as far as sharing out, keeping the team involved, one of the things that my team has started doing is sort of a rolling share where the team is super involved from the beginning, obviously, in setting those research questions. And therefore, the final report is more of a nice, pretty bow on top of everything. So they're there, for the debriefs, for making the insights, et cetera. So they feel like by the time they get to the final report, they've already been able to make some decisions and they get the report and they're like, this is a nice, thing to reference later and to kind of tie it up, but it doesn't hold me up for making decisions, that are maybe a little bit more time sensitive than, writing out the whole summary. We're also not big report writers over here. We're very like bite-sized, digestible things. And so if you can get some of those out, even if you don't have all of them, it's worth sharing because someone can take that and make a decision and keep going with that. And it just keeps everyone involved without you, doing the research and then going heads down for a week and then popping up and saying, guys, I solved it. I fixed everything. Like we moved on. That's never great.
Yeah, just the reality of needing to move at the pace that the business moves.
Yep.
Very cool. Awesome. Well, Donald just submitted a question here. If this is probably common amongst lots of companies, but navigating any budget reductions at your current org, how do you anticipate handling those if they haven't happened yet?
And Aaron, twist that knife this week.
Yeah.
Yes, we did have to have those conversations. They are not fun. I don't enjoy these. But it's a great question. And it's something that's happening to everyone right now. I think coming from my new role at looking at, the product team as a whole, looking at, do we have the right setup of researchers, designers, PMs, and engineers for what we, need to do. We are really lucky to be in a space where we have an extremely flexible research team that will go wherever they need. And so we're able to look at other parts of the business and say, okay, we haven't historically thought that we could use a researcher there, but we actually could, and we need to cut budget on this brand. And so we can be flexible and move someone over there. I think it goes back to the impact as well. Like if you're able to track that over the year and say, because we had a researcher, the business moved forward in this amount, and connecting them to the business goals throughout, then those conversations, when they happen, will be a lot easier because you're able to point and say, Wes did all of these projects and it made the business this much money. You usually can't tie it, that directly. But again, at least anecdotally, if you're able to have those conversations, it makes it a little harder to say, oh, well, we should lay that person off. It's like, you can lay that person off and then we won't grow as much as they contributed next year. And so those have been some of the not fun, but necessary, conversations that we've been having over the past couple weeks and months. And we were lucky to not make a cut. So we're in a good place.
Yeah, it's great. And it sounds like, being impact oriented and metrics oriented with the research process has helped be a bit more proactive with those conversations, even so that you're in a better spot going to those difficult discussions. Cool. So we've got a couple other questions here. So Tamara's asking, so someone who made a career pivot to UXR yourself, what advice would you give to people currently in the transition?
Yeah, join as many communities as you can. I was really lucky for a lot of the early times at Mariana when we were still really small that once I was able to pivot full into research, there were days where I felt like I was in school. I would spend the whole day learning, research best practices, talking to other people, learning how it could apply to my team. And one thing, I'm, as I mentioned, really grateful for, the Slack communities that I found, being able to ask quick questions. As a team of one, you feel really alone sometimes. And as a team of one who's transitioning into research, you feel super alone. And that imposter syndrome comes in, you doubt yourself, et cetera. And so one of the things that I think was really helpful is I was able to find a mentor outside of my my company who had started, the research. She was the research team of one. She grew it at a startup locally in DC, and she was able to, give that support the whole time. I was deep in the, oh my gosh, should I go back to grad school? Like, do I need a master's degree to do this? I just feel like I don't know everything. And she was like, if you feel like you need the space to learn, then yeah, you can go pay and get a master's degree. But like, if you feel like you're learning right now and I can provide you help and you feel like, you're learning from the community, then, maybe it's not worth it, and reassess it a little bit. And having that person who had like been there, done that was such like a huge relief and kind of de-stressor in those times when you're kind of like talking to yourself, like, what am I even doing? Do I know this? Like, it's a very doubtful time. So having someone to kind of bring you back down to earth is really helpful. And I've been that for people now that I've gone through this as well. And I'm happy to continue to be that person for people because I'm so thankful, for the people that have done that for me and want to continue to pay that back forever. Researchers love learning, which I think is both the best and the worst thing about us. We're always curious, but we're always going to be continually curious. We never think we know enough. And so happy to answer any of those questions, talk anyone down.
Thank you, Lindsay. I'm sure people will definitely be reaching out to you. Yes, exactly. Awesome. We've only got about 5 minutes left. There's one more question here from Victoria, who asked, what are the most essential roles necessary for a small research team between 3 to 5 team members?
Most essential roles? Is that the question?
Yes, that's the question. Or maybe you can also take it like most essential skill sets necessary for a small research team.
I know that one of the questions that we'd had that came in before was like, who is your first hire? So I'll kind of combine those two. If Kendall's on the call, shout out to Kendall, my first hire. What I was looking for, hi Kendall, what I was looking for when I did my first hire was definitely someone who could feel like a peer to me. So someone that you can trust to be that right-hand person as you grow and scale, you know, and I prioritized how they felt to work with over their skill. So like when stuff gets hard, are they able to be there for you, you know, as a human and not just like, oh, well, they're the most excellent researcher. It's like, yeah, but, you know, they actually need to be a PM right now. Like, you know, as a small company, we have, you know, varying needs all the time, and you need someone who can kind of jump on that and be that, I guess rubber duck is the engineering term, that wall that you can bounce off of. And then as we grew, I tried to get a diverse mix of both from like junior to senior levels who came from a diverse background. Not everybody on my team was a researcher before, and I love that. I think it gives them awesome context to other parts of the business. I think it, you know, it helps with just empathy as, you know, peers in a broader company of like working with other departments, and it brings like a new fresh set of eyes on things. And so that kind of diverse background was really important to me. I think one area where I'd like to see us beef up as we continue to grow is the quant stuff. I think we are a very qual heavy group, and could definitely benefit and continue to learn from someone who's a little bit more quant focused. And so I'd love for that to be probably one of our next hires, because I think having someone who has a lot of experience in that is gonna like just fully like push us forward, I think way more than we even realize, just having someone come in with that expertise. So I'd look for that balance, that diversity. 3 to 5 is still pretty small. And so you want to make sure you're kind of covering those bases and not just like being that echo chamber.
Love it, Lindsay. You are a wealth of knowledge. So many great insights. And I know we've only got, yeah, well, it's been great so far. We've only got 2-3 minutes left. If anyone has a last minute question, now is the time. Or if not, you can end a little bit early. If anyone wants to write in the chat, what was the most insightful thing you learned from Lindsay today? Maybe that'll be a nice way to spend the last couple of minutes.
Oh, thank you. Oh my gosh, this is so nice. Will I be able, I think there's a couple questions and comments. Will I be able to see the chat after as well, Oren?
Yes, so we saved down the questions that we hadn't been able to get to, so we'll be able to get to those later. Awesome. Oh, I see one question here, Michelle. What's your favorite part of being a researcher? Maybe that's a nice finisher for us.
That's nice. My favorite part of being a researcher, I think specifically for where I've spent all of my research years, is with small business owners for the most part. Obviously, we have some bigger brands, but knowing that the work that we do impacts the things that they are most passionate about. And so the work that we do contributes to them being able to continue to run their small business. Is just endlessly wholesome, humbling. It continues to ground you that, we're not just making software to make software, we're making software for people to support themselves and grow their livelihood. We have the added bonus that we work in boutique fitness, and so the end consumers are literally bettering their life. It's very wellness focused, and so improving people's overall health is just an added kind of cherry on top to that. But yeah, I've been really lucky to get form a lot of really great relationships with a lot of our clients that I think have impacted me immensely.
Amazing. Well, sounds like you've built an awesome career so far, and we're excited to hear.
I can't believe this is something that people get to do and get paid for. It's crazy.
Yeah. It's amazing. Awesome. Well, thank you again, Lindsay. You are the absolute best. Clearly everyone else agrees.
I'm so nosy. That's so true. Before I did this, I just stalked people on Facebook to find out someone's Bumble date was. So true.
That's great. Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. We are just at time now. Awesome AMA. Thanks for the engagement and the questions. We'll follow up with a recording. And if anyone wants to learn a bit more about Rally, how we help teams build panels, manage panels, recruit, feel free to reach out. I'll put my email down here.
Rally's the best. Final plug.
Every
day.
Love it. All right. Have a great rest of your Thursday, and bye, everyone.
Bye all. Thank you.